Alright, and welcome back to Monday Morning Mooks, where we just... What? What? Look, I don't pay attention to the... No one... I seem like I'm talking to myself, Mike. No one can see you.
Maybe. But I can see me, and that's what matters.
And that's what matters. Alright, so... When we last left off, we jumped off of something to our death and found out it was an achievement, which was a neat little extra. And now, as you run back to where we were before, that gives us a little time. There's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. One, I wanted to start positive, because one is very positive. And that is, like, we sort of, like, sat there once they introduced the whole being able to see the future and change it as a combat mechanic. We pretty much spent the last 2 episodes sucking this game's dick. After being, before, I think, somewhat negative about it. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to go into a little bit more why I think this mechanic is such a redeeming factor for this game and why I suddenly turned my opinion on it once they introduced that.
Alright.
One thing, it's a total unicorn. It's something that you never see, not just because of its own originality, but because of what it means. So far, and I'll get into it later that I'm sort of afraid they're going to deviate from this as the game goes on, but so far there's been like one clear theme that this game is about, and that's seeing and changing the future. Like, the events of this game are about changing the future. Am I going out on too far out on a limb here? I think that's kind of obviously what they're going for.
Yeah.
If you broke it down to its most fundamental level, this game is about killing small woodland creatures and changing the future. So, this game has something that almost never happens in an RPG. I could, like, count on one hand the amount of times that this happens. And that is, you have a game where a fundamental mechanic in the gameplay is explicitly related to the themes of what's going on. You're changing the future in the game's events, and the mechanics, the gameplay and the story are both about changing the future. I can't think of any RPG, like, and you know, the few it's not even common in other genres either, but I think it's the rarest in RPGs that does that, where the mechanics of the game are directly linked to the themes of the game. I could think of 2 off the top of my head.
RPGs or just games in general?
Games in general. I can't think of a single RPG that does that, and if you can, please help me out.
I can't think of any RPGs right off the top of my head right now.
Like, the first game that I thought of that actually has that, Mega Man X.
Oh, yes.
And I think I don't need to go on a half an hour to explain why Ego Raptor did that for me in a video that's very, very popular. So if you found us, I'm taking it for granted that you've seen the Ego Raptor video on Mega Man X. But yeah, as far as RPGs, this is almost unheard of. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. Now, at the same time, I'm not apologizing for any negative comments I made about this game earlier, because I think I'm not unjustified in saying that this is a slow starter. We played for like 5 hours before we were introduced to the fundamental combat mechanic of the game. Okay, Mike's actually nodding in agreement, which is nice, but again, they can't see you.
Well, I wasn't nodding in agreement at all.
Oh. Oh, good. I just nod because I was feeling a beat. I was feeling the groove, and I want to put some gems into my light top. Or my ranger top.
Pretty much, yes. That's the...
Well, okay, I think this game was really obviously a slow starter.
I wouldn't go with such vitriol that you had kind of...
Okay, well, I have a special hatred for slow starters. I think being a slow starter is one of the fundamental sins of video games. And people, because a game is such an investment, you spend so much more on a game than you do to, say, see a movie, people are expecting you to sort of put up with that crap. Like, we could start slow, because people are going to just sort of try and chug through a bad beginning. And I hate that so much, and I love games that have a strong opening hook, because the the standard has become so weak in that regard. So maybe I overreact to slow starters, but I don't think I'm wrong in saying this game was a slow start.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I mean, I won't say it was the quickest start for a game, you know. It didn't,
I can feel the power.
but I feel like there are so many other. I guess maybe it's just there's so many other worse RPGs.
Well, I mean, okay, if we started talking about every RPG that was worse than this, the Final Fantasy series alone would take up everything we say on this show.
Well?
Oh hey, Ham's Traveler. The Guar planes. But, alright, so I don't think I'm unjustified in saying it's a slow starter, and that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are two things I could say. But this introduction to this mechanic, I am thoroughly amazed, because it's not only doing something right, and something that is rare, even though I should think it should be like 101, the bare basics. So I'm really impressed with that.
Yes.
Okay.
That being said, I can never be positive for too long a period of time in a row. And there's one thing that I'm deathly afraid of, and that is that they won't be able to keep it up. Like, not so much, like, they introduced this mechanic, and I think we're very clearly being shown a fundamental mechanic. I don't think they're just going to drop this or make it a gimmick for, like, a couple of fights and then never come up again. Though, I mean, it might. If it does that, that's crap, but I'm giving the game more credit. If they came up with this thing, they probably want to keep it around.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm afraid that right now the thing that makes it so brilliant is that it's directly connected with the basic themes of the game. I'm afraid that the events that are going on in this game are going to go so far off the rails that it's going to lose meaning. Because, let's face it, this game has Xeno in it, and every other Xeno game has... The landmark of Xeno games is that they totally go off the rails with what's going on. Like, they just totally fall off the chain and, like, nothing makes sense. Mike would argue, but he's too busy putting on pants.
Yeah. Oh man, I like these new prairie trousers.
Oh, those are the fanciest trousers of all. How come all the equipment that you like gets more and more 80s on these guys? Have you noticed? And that's the most 80s of all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily agree. I'll just leave it at that.
Like, really? We don't get treated to any more explanation on that? I think you're wrong, but I'm not going to say why.
I think that it does fall into the characteristic of... Oh wait, hold on. Let's see.
Oh wait, we got to watch one of the game's many riveting cutscenes first.
The Bionis' leg.
We're on the Bionis leg. Hey, how do they know what part of this giant body they're on? They don't have flying surveillance.
And you know what? How did the ancient Greeks know the world was round? Huh?
Well, because Erasmus
look over
actually
there.
used the shadow in a well to do some calculations.
Smoke.
Yeah, so
Maybe
perhaps they
someone's
did
got
something
fire
similar.
Hope they're cooking up something good. It's hardly a good spot for a
You
barbecue.
can't
Come on, let's take a look.
start with the idea that everything forms one giant body of damn Gundam.
Huh. That's interesting. Oh, okay, that's pretty
Oh, hey,
interesting. Okay,
that's
so
nice.
so other certain enemies aggro based off of like not just whether or not they can see you, but whether or not they see you use magic.
Oh, so they're racist.
Okay.
But okay, so you were saying you don't necessarily agree?
Oh yes, yes. I think the Xeno games, though, knew. Look, okay, sure, yes, Xenogears, the second disc, ended up getting a little strange because, not strange, but shitty, I guess, is the correct.
Yeah, I think even even the biggest fans of Xenogears, and I think Xenogears actually started off strong. I think Xenogears did not have the slow starter problem. Well, maybe a little, but like very little. I think everyone, even great fans of that game, agree that once they got to Disc 2, they would have been better off just not playing anymore because it just the quality took a nosedive.
Yeah, and I mean that all of those things, you know, taken into consideration, I think the story, you know, yeah, went off the rails, but I believe that, you know, that's essentially a cornerstone of Japanese literature.
Oh, all right. Okay, I have to pose a question to you live on air, Mike.
Yeah.
And we talked about this off air because I realized it would come up, but then we started talking. I guess maybe it won't come up, but now I think it has. So I'm going to ask you. We talked for a long time today before we started filming about what I refer to as the God bullshit, which I explained in great detail. And one thing that I said is that light wisps just fly right past you while you're trying to kill them. No, one thing that I said is that I didn't want to necessarily explain what I mean by that in one episode because it's a long explanation to be clear on exactly what I mean when I say that. So, Mike, I'm going to ask you this because I feel it's got to come up at this point. Why? Wait. That is clearly a tool-using mammal. That thing is sentient, it's a penguin, and it wanted no part of violence until you... You are so the bad guys. But anyway, so, Mike, I'll ask you, should we... Because I think the response to what you said about it being a staple of Japanese literature will have to go into my God bullshit talk. Should we talk about it on this or perhaps the next episode, or should I just like have a little link pop up now to like a vlog of me explaining, and perhaps us both just talking about the God bullshit?
I think we should go into a short explanation.
Short explanation, and then we'll put like a little link.
Yeah, to something.
All right, we're gonna have a little link pop up in the corner of the screen at this point that gives you like a full talk of us just like sitting around in front of a camera talking about like all we mean by this. But the short version is when, and I don't think this is exclusive to video games, nor do I think it's exclusive to Japanese video games. So the fact that you seem to think it's a...
well, no, I think it's more of just in general an Asian cultural.
The fact that you think that it's an Asian thing, if you convince me and you're right, I'm going to be mad at all of Asia for it. But, okay, so the God bullshit, in summation, and I think I'll leave the link up so you can actually see it, but the short version is when the terms of the conflict, like the nature of the primary conflict in the story, and the stakes of that conflict are shifted so rapidly that the audience loses any emotional connection with what's going on. Like, and the most classic example I could think of this is something that I guess it's a Final Fantasy trait. I always thought that this is what the creators of Final Fantasy games did when they wanted to leave early. Was like, okay, so they spent the whole time establishing like one villain who's trying to take over the world, right?
Whoa!
And then, don't mess with that thing. That is your villain trying to take over the world, and it's territorial. You give it its space. But yeah, so like this is when I talk about God bullshit and the stakes shifting and the terms of the conflict shifting so much that you lose all connection with it. I'm talking about like the Final Fantasy thing. They have like one villain who's trying to take over the world, right? Mm-hmm. And then you beat him, and then because like for some reason they deemed him not interesting enough, suddenly there's another villain that you've only like maybe not even seen before, maybe was only alluded to, but he pops up and he's like some kind of concept of reality or man's desire for death or something like that just pops up, and like now you're fighting a concept. And like that's a problem because like what'd you do to establish this?
Someone's left the buggy out here.
free car.
That's strange. Who would just abandon a buggy in this
Just because
place?
it's on fire.
And
I mean,
pretty
it's
new.
perfectly
Is it
reusable.
brand new? Not brand new, but it's in very good condition.
Oh, the fact that it's on fire.
It's on fire as you're looking at it, Shulk. I suddenly question your mechanic credentials that this game has been trying to establish. Oh wait, does that mean you can also see into the past, or is this the future?
This looks like the past.
This
I don't
might
know.
be the future. This might be whoever owns this buggy running from giant monsters.
Oh, true.
Yeah, you know what? In fact, they've only established the
There's a
future.
boy. He's being attacked by monsters. You saw it happening? Where? I don't know. But it was near some water. Near water? But what made you have a vision all of a sudden? Maybe it was triggered by touching the
Is
buggy.
Ryan new?
Well, we'd better find him.
Right.
Search everywhere around
Ryan
here where
seems
there's
surprised by it. I guess,
Okay.
you know what, though, that's in character, because the one thing they established about him is that he's stupid. But, alright, so go find some water. Oh, wait. So I guess I could continue my rant next time on Monday Morning Mooks.